Magnesium is crucial for over 300 processes in your body, from energy production and muscle recovery to sleep quality and stress response. Yet most Americans don't get enough. In fact, in a peer-reviewed clinical trial published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, more than 75% of participants showed suboptimal magnesium levels before the study even began. Those who took Jigsaw Mag SRT, a time-release magnesium malate tablet, saw magnesium rise 30% over 90 days, and deficiency symptoms dropped by 63%. Remarkable results backed by real science. And for sleep and recovery, Jigsaw Mag Soothes delivers. In a 4-week clinical trial tracked with Oura Ring data, participants saw a 17% improvement in sleep quality, felt 34% less stressed, and rated their satisfaction 85 out of 100. 82% said they'd buy it again. 2 supplements, 2 clinical trials, 1 company that does the research. Jigsaw Health. Mag SRT for daily magnesium replenishment. Mag Soothe for calm, restorative sleep. To order, go to jigsawhealth.com. That's jigsawhealth.com. Use coupon code Hoffman15 for 15% off your order. That's jigsawhealth.com, code Hoffman15. Welcome to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. Today we're going to tell you the fascinating story about Urolithin A, which is one of the most exciting compounds on the nutritional front. It is a bona fide, science-based compound that has been validated with a lot of experimental research for supporting mitochondrial function. And that, of course, is a very important theme here on Intelligent Medicine. We've done many podcasts on the subject of mitochondrial health. And to take us through the science and tell us a little bit about MitoPure is Jen Scheinman. Jen is Director of Science Communications at Timeline, which is a longevity company based in Lausanne, Switzerland, which is on a mission to improve health span. And I'm fortified because I've got my MitoPure gummies here. I finished chewing one prior to this podcast. I didn't want to be, it's kind of like they gave a challenge to a Greek philosopher named, he was an orator, and he was such a great orator that he could put pebbles in his mouth and still perfectly articulate his speeches. But I can't do that with a Timeline gummy in my mouth. So I've just finished one. But I think I'm a little bit energized, Jen. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I am doing fantastic, and challenge accepted. I'm going to start practicing talking with the gummies in our mouth.
Right. The challenge is to put 5 or 6 in your mouth and then, try to do that. Just look up Demosthenes. That's kind of like a little bit of a factoid, one of those useless pieces of information. Okay, so give us a little bit of background on Timeline. For those of our listeners, many of our listeners, I think, know about Urolithin A because we've been talking about it here a lot here on Intelligent Medicine. But take us through the Urolithin A story. What is it? How was it discovered? And how can we make it part of our daily routine to help us?
Yeah, well, Timeline, the company that makes, so MitoPure is the branded Urolithin A supplement, and Timeline is the parent organization. And they really started with a unique mission in the nutritional science space. And the mission really was to bring this biotech approach to natural molecules. So the things that we get in our food and in nature, and how can we study them and understand them and apply the same principles to studying these things as you might in like a pharmaceutical. And that really.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting concept because the way they look at drugs these days, and this is, I think, an important distinction because with MitoPure, with some supplements, it's like, I don't know, something like ashwagandha, for example. That's something that's been used in Ayurvedic medicine in a tradition, and then they studied it. It turns out that it actually has some bona fides in terms of being a adaptogen, fortifying the body, yada, yada, yada. It has a historical background. But the way the pharmaceutical industry does it is kind of interesting. They take a shotgun approach. They take a lot of candidate substances and then they test them for activity or potency against, certain medical conditions or for, supporting certain functions within the body. And it's a shotgun approach, and it's actually it's kind of an ecumenical approach in the sense that they don't have any skin in the game for one or another substances, right? They just wanted to discover what works. Have I nailed it there?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened with Urolithin A. So the idea was actually, this was back in, I want to say it's like 2018, or maybe even earlier than that, where sort of the pomegranate was sort of this holy grail of health in terms of food.
Mm-hmm.
And so what our team really wanted to do was understand these different bioactives that are in pomegranates.
Mm-hmm.
And what they started doing were feeding, so oligotannins are a specific polyphenol that is found in pomegranates. And so they started feeding worms oligotannins, other polyphenols, and then specifically this molecule urolithin A, which we'll get to this, but I just want to, it's not directly in the pomegranate. It's a metabolite that your body makes, and we'll double click on that a little bit more. But the idea was they fed urolithin A, some of these other metabolites to worms, and the worms that were fed urolithin A were living 45% longer, which is, a huge increase in lifespan. And that was really the sort of aha moment that got the researchers excited. There's something special about this, but they were testing several, to your point, ingredients with no skin in the game. And I've even heard from our chief medical officer that this urolithin A, they kind of, I don't even know why they decided to test it. They thought it was like a waste product.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very curious that it had this benefit.
Interesting. And well, I got to tell you, my origin story with this is again, I did not. I sometimes sponsors come to me and they say, "Hey, we've got an interesting product. Would you take a look at it?" I said, "Fine," and then mostly I say, it's not enough information. Circle back in a couple of years when you have better research. But actually, with this, I read a study. I believe it was in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And I said, this is super interesting. This compound that I'd never heard of, urolithin A, was doing some really interesting things in terms of, I believe the original study was on walking distance in seniors. I think that was the original study. If you recall, it was a few years back. And I said, wow, that has really practical implications because instead of studying, tiny quarter-inch roundworms, this is really applicable to humans. It's news we can use. It actually improved their walking distance. There's a timed walking distance. They use a stopwatch and say, well, or go, a minute or 5 minutes, I don't know what. And they want to see how much ground you can cover. And they actually found that when they administer the, am I basically reciting it correctly? And I said, wow, this really got my attention. And I said, let me start using it. And I got to say, for a couple of years, I just bought this stuff. I just paid for it, and then I said, I'm really enjoying this stuff. I think I'm, my energy's really good. And it's part of an overall program. I mean, I'm doing so many different things. And I said, I'm really excited about this. I want to tell my listeners about it. I reached out and Timeline was, I think, optimistic enough to partner with me and said, because we have a wide audience and I want to get the word out to my listeners and my patients.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I think that's another really meaningful distinction between a lot of supplements that are out there, where there might be like a biometric that's moving. So our first clinical study actually may have not caught your eye, was one that was just actually looking like, how does this work in humans? How is it supporting mitochondrial health? But then we took it that step further to have these meaningful impacts like you just talked about in muscle endurance, muscle strength, and we're now starting to learn about some other clinical benefits as well. But that was the whole approach. How does it work in animals? Like, does it work in animals? Let's really understand how it works and what's the proper dosing in humans. And then does that proper dose actually have an outcome that's meaningful and helpful to your patients or your audience listeners?
It's kind of interesting because there are some things that we've used, even conventional medicine, and we don't even really know how they work. We just know they work. I mean, we know that aspirin is a great anti-inflammatory. If you have a headache, inflammation, you take an anacin and, it's better. I think they're only just beginning to understand how it works. But urolithin A, contrary-wise, we do have a mechanism of action. We kind of know, A, it works, and B, what's the mechanism that underlies that. So maybe talk speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so it is working on the mitochondria. So I'm sure your audience is very familiar with the important role of the mitochondria as sort of these key regulators. We always heard them as powerhouse of the cell. That's sort of the first thing that we think of is
Hmm.
that they're the energy makers of our cells. They're creating the energy. So whether it's a muscle cell or a skin cell or a brain cell, they're all working on this energy currency. But the mitochondria actually are regulators of lots of different
Hmm.
processes within the body. And unfortunately, as we age, their sort of efficiency, they start to become dysfunctional. And the way that urolithin A works is very unique in the fact that it's helping these dysfunctional mitochondria recycle and then rebuild newer, healthier ones. So I think of them almost like if you think of like an energy factory, right? Like this factory does just through wear and tear and through, pollution, all factories need to be basically demolished at some point, no matter how well you take care of them. And that's kind of what urolithin A is doing. It's helping to recycle those damaged mitochondria. And that's really the core mechanism of why you see benefits across muscle, across immune, topically across skin, and why we're now studying it in lots of different areas of aging as well.
And the new conception of mitochondria, we're sort of widening our understanding of what they do. We used to just think of them, and you know, even 5 or 10 years ago, kids in college and medical school were learning that mitochondria were just about energy production. But now we're having a wider understanding that they're kind of like, I've heard them referred to as a motherboard for all the functions within the cell. They're important regulators of cellular function. So not only do you experience fatigue, but you may experience all kinds of, hormonal abnormalities and various types of breakdown in protein synthesis and, so many different things that are controlled by the mitochondria. So they really occupy a very central role in regulation of all the body's function. And unfortunately, they decline in function as we age.
Yep. Yep. And because, this is always what is so miraculous about the body is that it knows how to take care of itself, right? Because the mitochondria are so critically important to every cell in your body, the we have this sort of self-cleaning mechanism called mitophagy. But the problem is that also starts to decline with age. So you start to have this buildup of dysfunctional mitochondria, and the quality control system is not working as efficiently as it was. And so that's something that's sort of unique to urolithin A in the mitochondrial health space, because there's several supplements that are targeting mitochondrial health. But the key differentiator about urolithin A is that triggering of the recycling process, that
Hmm.
ability to clear out the damaged mitochondria.
I'm conjuring up an image of like, like those beer wagons, with those heavy horses, those Clydesdale horses, and there's like 8 horses hitched to the wagon because the wagon is very heavy. But it turns out that, first one, then two, then 3 horses, they're they're tired, they're worn out, maybe they need new horseshoes, and then it slows down the wagon. But
Yep.
if you keep pushing the horses, the wagon's just going to slow down. What you need to do is you need to replace the horses. You need to clean that up. Mitophagy is a little bit like that, is replacing the dysfunctional mitochondria. They're kind of weighing on the overall energy production and regulation within this. There's a bunch, there are mitochondria that are tired out.
Yeah. Yep. I love that analogy. I think that's perfect.
Okay, you can
Absolutely.
use it. I just
Yep.
get a small
I'll give you
percentage.
credit.
Okay. Okay.
Love it.
Good stuff. No, but I think that it helps so much, I think, for people to have a basic science understanding of what they're doing and what they're taking, which is one of the reasons why we do these long form discussions. We could just say, I mean, you could spend a lot of money advertising this stuff, saying, "Yeah, then this improves your energy," la la la, but I really like to get sciencey about it because our listeners are sophisticated. Okay, folks, at this point, let's pause and allow one of our sponsors an opportunity to share an important message with you. So here goes. Listen up. Magnesium is crucial for over 300 processes in your body, from energy production and muscle recovery to sleep quality and stress response. Yet most Americans don't get enough. In fact, in a peer-reviewed clinical trial published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, more than 75% of participants showed suboptimal magnesium levels before the study even began. Those who took Jigsaw Mag SRT, a time-release magnesium malate tablet, saw magnesium rise 30% over 90 days, and deficiency symptoms drop by 63%. Remarkable results backed by real science. And for sleep and recovery, Jigsaw Mag Soothes delivers. In a 4-week clinical trial tracked with Oura Ring data, participants saw a 17% improvement in sleep quality, felt 34% less stressed, and rated their satisfaction 85 out of 100. 82% said they'd buy it again. 2 supplements, 2 clinical trials, 1 company that does the research. Jigsaw Health. Mag SRT for daily magnesium replenishment, Mag Soothe for calm, restorative sleep. To order, go to jigsawhealth.com. That's jigsawhealth.com. Use coupon code Hoffman15 for 15% off your order. That's jigsawhealth.com, code Hoffman15.
Has your digestive health been striking out due to poor food choices, medications, stress, and other lifestyle issues? This season, hit a home run for your digestive health with Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics. Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics is a live probiotic encapsulated in small, easy-to-swallow capsules that delivers Dr. Ohhira's signature blend of pre, pro, and postbiotics. Dr. Ohhira's award-winning formula contains a prebiotic blend of fruits and vegetables, which are naturally fermented with 13 strains of live probiotic bacteria for a minimum of 3 years. The result? Dr. Ohhira's game-changing postbiotic metabolites, which are key to supporting long-term digestive, immune, and cognitive function. Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, an all-star formulation and the best probiotic on the market today for overall digestive health and wellness. Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, available at Sprouts, Natural Grocers, and other natural health retailers nationwide.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting our sponsors, because they are what make intelligent medicine a continuing free resource to you. And now, back to today's guest, Jen Scheinman, who's Director of Science Communications at Timeline. So I have to say that among the things that are out there, this is one of the more plausible ways to reboot your mitochondria. Now, some people might say, well, is this does this replace everything else that you do for your mitochondria? And to me, the answer is no, because there are other things that work on the mitochondria in other ways, like coenzyme Q10 or ubiquinol. And one of our sponsors, NT Factor, they have shown that it helps to stabilize the mitochondrial membrane, which is kind of different than mitophagy. And then there's, NAD precursors. They're not a sponsor, but, I think that they have some plausibility. They're actually going into production of NAD, which is an energy compound. I think we really need an all of the above approach to sustain mitochondrial function, because it's kind of like entropy. We're all of us, as we age, we're battling entropy. Eventually we're just going to run out of energy.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree with that. When I think about the mitochondria, again, I think of them in this factory, but I'm sure we could apply it to this sort of horse-drawn carriage idea as well, right? Like those horses, you still need to feed them and care for them along the way. You don't, to get the most mileage out of them, right? Even though, eventually they'll have to retire. And, that's what I think about the factory as well, is things like CoQ10 help keeping that factory running better and extending the life of that factory. But at the end of the day, you still do have to clean it up. So I like to think about urolithin A as sort of this foundational piece. Then you're probably going to then get even more bang for your buck when you use some of these other NAD or CoQ10 or any of these other sort of mitochondrial support things. They probably are supporting the mitochondria in different ways.
Indeed. So I think what's also interesting about this is some of the things that we thought were great, in the 90s, they were all the rage. But then, 20, 25, 30 years hence, we don't hear about them because the research was based on a few papers and then it was one and done. And there was no further exploration about, because people may have just lost interest or lost confidence in certain things. But what's happening with urolithin A, I think we're seeing a surge of interest in it. There's so many different papers, so many researchers are exploring it for just a wide variety of applications.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is because it all comes back to its unique mechanism of action and the critical importance of mitochondria. So when mitochondrial dysfunction is happening, it's not isolated to one organ system. It's
Hmm.
just really almost like a matter of where's it going to show up first
Yeah.
for you. Because, right? So it's your muscles, it's your skin, it's your brain, it's your immune system. And that's where, reproductive aging, like that's another sort of area. All of this is tied into mitochondrial health. And that's why there's so much excitement because we know, first of all, and I think most importantly, it's safe, right? So when we're
Yeah.
studying interventions, we want to know that we're giving people something that's safe. But then obviously, we've had this really great data on showing how it's improving the mitochondria and showing that it's improving mitochondria across different tissues and different cell types at this point. So there's really sparked a lot of curiosity about what are some other areas that are yet to be learned about.
So people are hearing this and they're saying, well, that's great, but these supplements they can be a little pricey. I'm just going to get some pomegranate juice. It's cheaper, and it's got the benefits of this, right?
Maybe for some people. And this is where it gets a little bit sort of interesting and tricky. So we talked a little bit about this in the beginning when we were talking about just sort of studying in worms these different molecules. And urolithin A is not directly found in any food or any pomegranates or nuts or berries. Those
Hmm.
dietary precursors are. And what happens is when you eat those foods, your gut actually, the microbes that live in your gut, I'm sure your audience is very familiar with the gut microbiome, those bacteria there convert those polyphenols into urolithin A. And there's two issues with that is most of us don't have a healthy gut microbiome. So
Hmm.
most of us can't make that conversion at all. And even those few people, so really only about like 30 to 40% of the population can convert to urolithin A. And then that population would have to drink a lot of pomegranate
Yeah.
juice to get the same clinically validated effects that we're seeing with
Which
dietary supplements.
unfortunately is kind of full of sugar. I mean, almost no, even unsweetened pomegranate juice is kind of a calorie bomb.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my background's a registered dietitian. What we've uncovered is you have to drink 6 cups of pomegranate
Hmm.
juice to equal the same amount as 500 milligrams of urolithin A. Like, there's no way I would
Hmm.
ever recommend someone's having 6 cups of pomegranate juice a day. To your
How many
point, way too much.
cosmopolitans would you have to drink? I think that's made with pomegranate juice, isn't it?
It's curious because I wonder how the alcohol would
Yeah.
counterbalance that. But yeah, I mean, that maybe 20. I don't know.
Okay. Well, you wouldn't feel any pain anyway. So,
That's for sure.
okay. Well, all right. So so what they've done is they've come up with a process to undertake that conversion, and then you get pure urolithin A in a concentrated form. So regardless of whether you're making it, you're going to get it if you take it on a regular basis.
Exactly. So it's just basically bypassing the need
Hmm.
to have I mean, yes, you still need to have a healthy gut microbiome, but like in the case of urolithin A, it's bypassing, the need to worry about your gut microbes or worry about the dietary, how much pomegranate juice you're getting in a day, because it's one of those rare instances where this is something that's really, really hard for most people to get enough of from food. And so that's the solution is having a dietary supplement to kind of bypass all those challenges.
And what are the different forms that you can take it in? Because I mentioned the gummies. I'll hold up a package of that because I kind of keep it on my desk when I remember to take it. Try to take 2 or 3 a day. Um, and that is the sweet spot when it comes to the research, right?
So yeah, so the research shows between 500 and 1,000 milligrams are sort of the where the benefits happen. So in the gummy, for example, 2 gummies is 500 milligrams, four would be 1,000, so 750
Hmm.
would be with three. Um, and there's a couple different ways people can take them. I think the feedback I've had from just about everybody is everyone's favorite way to take them is with the gummy. It's
Hmm.
a sugar-free gummy.
Right. That's a
It
concern because of do you really want to, it's getting a lot, a lot of gummies are
can,
candy.
yep. And a lot of gummies also don't like this is a big issue with some of the creatine gummies out there and just some of the others like
Oh,
the
they don't,
molecule
they don't
doesn't
work.
stay stable in a
Yeah.
gummy, and so what we've done is we figured out a way that the urolithin A stays stable in the gummy, so you are getting that actual 500 milligrams. It's sugar free, it's free of artificial dyes and flavors, And they're delicious. Like
Yeah,
everybody, we were joking earlier about the like gummy challenge. Can you talk with it? I think the real challenge is like, can you only have two a day?
that's
They're
true.
that good.
That's true.
But
But it's hard to OD, man. If your kid got into your, Urolithin A stash and started eating it like jelly beans, that you wouldn't have to take him to the emergency room because I don't think
yeah,
that.
yeah. And it's something that, I mean, your kid may or may not be making on their own. And we haven't studied it in children, so there's always that
Mhm.
caution, but it's something that's natural that your body
Yep.
should be making on your own. So it should be sort of low risk there. But there are for people who are just, not gummy people or don't happen to like the flavor or the texture of them, then we do have, standard pill soft gels. So two of those would be 100, I'm sorry, two of those would be 500 milligrams.
Mhm.
And then a powder form also,
And
which is
I'm old school. I think the original form was the powder, and
correct.
I just open up a little sachet and I just add it to all the other ingredients in my morning smoothie
Yep.
with my protein powder, and I think that does not vitiate the effectiveness of that. Although I've heard something, and I don't know if you've heard this. Maybe we discussed this already. Um, there is a study that suggests that bananas, which are a favorite thing to add to a shake because they get like a nice texture, nice flavor, thickening agent. Bananas have something called polyphenol oxidase in them, and oh, by the way, urolithin A, to my mind, is a polyphenol. So maybe you don't want to make your shake with
That's
bananas with the.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question and thought. So urolithin A, because it is a metabolite, it's not the alligitanin is really the polyphenol.
Hmm.
So it's a polyphenol metabolite,
Hmm.
and it's really relatively stable to
Oh,
lots of different things, right?
oh,
Because
that's
it's meant
reassuring.
to,
Okay,
yeah, I mean, it's meant to be absorbed by your gut. But I don't know the true answer to
okay,
that because I
okay,
don't believe we've ever studied that.
okay,
And it's someone who I just, not because they're not healthy, I just don't like bananas. So like I haven't really even thought about it that way at all. So, but
okay. Well, then maybe
but yeah,
you can ask your wonky laboratory colleagues in Lausanne,
yeah,
Switzerland, to run the test and see what happens if
yeah.
it reduces the delivery of the urolithin. Anyway, yeah, this is thought to be one of the reasons why when you're making a shake with berries, you don't want to put bananas in there because berries deliver polyphenols, but they're not the metabolites, right?
Yep.
So you're going to actually interfere with some of the uptake. Okay, that was just a little sidelight. Okay, so then there's the capsules. Goodness knows, I've taken so many capsules and tablets of things that's not for me, but it's a convenient form when you travel. Although I'm going to take a long trip at the end of the summer, and I'll take the gummies. I'll just throw the gummies in my suitcase because like you can take two or three a day. There's a lot in here. What is this like? How many?
So a
60.
month.
That'll take care of me for the whole trip. So yeah, that's a good portable way to get it because I won't have a blender at my disposal. I'm not so obsessive that I'm going to, sidle up to the bar and say, here's some ingredients that I brought along. Could you please
Yeah.
put this in a blender?
Although I will say the powder is also delicious, and so it's a berry flavor. It's
You
also
can
delicious.
put it,
Like
yeah, you can put it on fruit. Yeah,
yeah,
you can.
like I put it in plain Greek yogurt, and it like
Hmm.
has my Greek yogurt have this really nice berry flavor, especially in the summer when you put like sweet berries on top. So there's
Yeah.
lots of ways you can kind of incorporate it in different foods. But
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. When you're
Before
traveling,
you came up with the gummies, I used to put it on a little bit of oatmeal,
perfect.
especially, when you're a place that's like B&B and they serve oatmeal or, European plan hotel, there's always an option for, some oatmeal porridge, and it's a nice add-on to that. So yeah, that works, and it's got a nice berry flavor. All right, so I want to talk about some of the applications of this in part two, because some people say, well, is this right for me? I have this or that or the other condition, or I'm just an optimizer, or I'm an athlete. Let's hear what people are saying about this and what the research is saying about this for various conditions. Although, we can't make medical claims about this. That's, one of the things about the supplement industry. You can't say this is something that cures this or that or the other disease, but we can say it supports the body's resilience in the face of, whatever challenges. So I think that that's a way to position it. Jan Scheinman has a Master's of Science degree. She's also an RDN and a CDN. She's got a lot of initials after her name, and she is eminently qualified to be Director of Science Communications for Timeline, a longevity company on a mission to improve health span. And do you get to go to Lausanne, Switzerland? Because
I do. We are
oh,
lucky enough to go. They take us on a company-wide trip once a year,
okay,
um, which is lovely. So they really want us to experience the Swiss culture,
yeah.
and we get to, a few lucky of us get to go visit the lab, which is so cool and so incredible to see. So yeah, incredibly fortunate.
That's on my bucket list. That's something I'm going to want to do at some point because it's a beautiful city and wonderful destination, and I really want to see, up close, your lab facility, which I'm sure is very
Yeah.
impressive. All right, when we return, more on the subject of Urolithin A. The product is MitoPure. For more information and to order, we've created a special offer for our Intelligent Medicine listeners. Just go to timeline.com/Hoffman and use coupon code Hoffman at checkout for 20% off. Special introductory offer. That's timeline.com/Hoffman for 20% off MitoPure gummies with code Hoffman. This is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast.